Welcome to Thursday, January the 7th, Fireside Chat. In the light of recent events in the U.S. and the outcome of the election, I think it's important that we remind ourselves of something very fundamental regarding the history of responsible government, how we managed to create such, and what we need to understand regarding our responsibility to it. I wrote the following this morning, and it's about Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn's realization that in the gulags there was no one that was innocent. He realized fundamentally that everything was everyone's problem and that there were no real innocents. So I'll read what I posted this morning to Facebook, as well as to my most recent video, which I encourage you to watch. Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn stated that to truly understand the problem with society, one must not think of themselves as a victim, but rather as the perpetrator. Why? Because we are all guilty. All of us are responsible in some odd way for what is happening. As an example, Hitler only told Germans what they wanted to hear. He was a master at watching the crowd respond to what he was saying and giving them more of what got them excited. Our current political elite have erased 1,000 years of parliamentary principles with a sledgehammer. Therefore, what makes anyone think more legislation will address a problem previous legislation in 1,000 years of history couldn't address? We must face the fact that we deliberately have placed an entire cadre of postmodernists in office whose sole intent is to erase our heritage and the rule of law. This is our fault. It started when we, out of kindness, permitted our former enemies to immigrate to our shores, who came from countries which had totalitarian regimes. Almost invariably, these immigrants brought the love of big statism with them. I went to the St. Catherine's Collegiate up till grade 13, and had many friends, of course, whose families came from abroad, fled totalitarianism. It's very interesting to note how many of them, in spite of their families fleeing from totalitarianism, would vote for the biggest system of governance that they could place into power. And it's also fascinating to note that they thought collectively. These people had no sense of their own individuality. When put together with other socialists, you couldn't differentiate one from another. They repeated the self-same line of jive about why they thought socialism could bring equity to society. You didn't get to meet them as a person. You got to meet the collective consciousness. It was a manifestation of something that was beyond them and outside of them. Literally, it is the manifestation of what Nietzsche called the ubermensch. So, the West, save for a miracle, is lost because there are too few remaining in it with the spiritual fortitude, ethical resolve, and intellectual integrity, willing to stare into the abyss we have created to restore the civilization which created the most liberal, free, economically prosperous, and just societies which have ever existed in the long history of mankind. Societies which were built on the idea of the sovereign, thinking, and accountable individual who is endowed with inherent rights by their Creator and equal, not an outcome, but before the law. It is impossible for a person to be moral when they are detached from anything that deeply seats them in a sound philosophical understanding of why we progress the way we do, and why deviating from that manner of progression would result in nothing but tyranny. And as we see the alt-right going cuckoo, you see this same collectivist mindset manifested among them. You're not encountering an individual who even has any basic understanding of Western liberal democracy and constitutional law. You just see people whose herd of choice is the enemy of the other herd of the other's choice. It's truly sad for me how often I've warned about these things. I predicted back in 2016 that either in that election that neither Trump nor Clinton were fit candidates for the highest office in the US. I certainly don't demonize Trump, but what I do demonize is his incredible simplicity, his inability to frame things in a reasonable and rational way. When we forego reason, because nature abhors a vacuum, emotions invariably will take the place of reason. I heard something interesting that Dr. Peterson said the other day that I believe is very true. Atheists and fundamental Christians have a similar problem. The atheist believes that the scientific method disproves the scriptures and provides him with all the information he needs to live life. And of course, science is not a value structure. There's no value structure to be found in science. And I need to remind people, because of the tremendous lack of understanding of what science means, is that a real scientist has a theory, and instead of going about trying to prove that theory to be true, they go about trying to find reasons that they can disprove their own theory, which is, of course, why there's so much nonsense around COVID-19, properly known as the CCP virus. It's not real science at all, because none of these so-called scientists are trying to disprove anything. Rather, they're trying to prove that their methods are correct. And by the same token, although the fundamentalist believes in science because they use it in every aspect of their life, from their automobile through to their computer, they try to look at the Bible in a scientific way, as though it were a scientific document, completely forgetting that the scientific method is only about 500 years old. Hardly anyone, including scientists, thinks scientifically. It has to be a deliberate act of volition to walk around life trying to disprove everything you believe to be true. And so the assumption on the fundamentalists is that the people that wrote the scriptures were scientists, which of course they weren't. And that they failed to understand, both failed to understand, that the real meaning in Scripture. The great truths in Scripture are contained in its metaphors, which is why even the four Gospels contradict one another in minor regards. Nevertheless, they reveal the same truth. How can this be? It's quite easy to see how it can be, because both are utterly simplistic and stupid. Which again is why I remonstrate with Trump. Multivariate complex problems cannot be simplistically resolved. And 15-second memes and bumper sticker slogans don't contain the solution to the problems that we face as a society today. So if there's any lesson I have for folks today, it's that it's up to you and up to me to do the deep thinking, to stare into the abyss, and to realize that we are accountable. Yesterday, I called two of Pierre Poilievre's numbers. And this is what I found out when I called his office. I want to read this to you. Give me a second here to scroll down. Where are you? Forgive me. Just scrolling down the long list of things I posted yesterday. I called my MP's office to ask how it is possible that our current government is constantly exceeding its proper mandate to govern. I got a message that due to the CP virus restrictions, Pierre's office will be closed for the duration of the lockdown. Here I have confirmation that my own government doesn't consider their members of parliament to be essential services. This is great news, because we need to shut the hill down, fire the entire lot of these finagling politicrats, and get back to constitutionalism and the rule of law. It will save the nation a bundle and prevent any further idiotic legislation from being passed. Now, these things are obviously true to anyone who is doing even a modicum of thinking rather than emoting. I suppose after we realize our own accountability, that because we are accountable for those whom we elected, we need to hold their feet to the fire or get them out of office. Whether this is possible or not, I don't know. I spend almost all of my time thinking and praying about these matters, because on both sides of the aisle, all I hear is silliness and shallowness, an utter, callow willingness to avoid critical thinking. So here's to good reading and deep thought. I wish you folks a very fine Thursday, and post your remarks and comments below. I'll post links to these things as well. And please tell me what your thoughts are on these matters. This is a discussion that we all must engage in. Have a great day, folks. You take good care.